So I've got a new style of video to upload today. Myself, my tournament partner, my wife, and her tournament partner, we decided to head down to Jackson, Tennessee, to a place called the Picklebarn, owned by Brad Tursky, and he provides lessons. And so we went down there with a tournament partner and just let him watch us play. He corrected us here and there with what he saw and gave us some feedback. In my newness of video editing and just recording video in general, I put my phone right next to a speaker, and it wasn't very loud, but the phone being that close, it just made it so there was no way I could take the sound, the music out of the video, and I'm sure YouTube would flag it as copyright. And then I also made another noob mistake, which was with my other camera that I had on the kitchen line. I somehow started it in time-lapse mode, so I got no sound from it at the first half. So I apologize for the video on the lessons portion. So basically what I had to do was take the video, mute it in the video editor, and then just talk about what's happening in the point with a screen recorder. So it's not my best product, so I apologize for that. But I think I'm still getting the gist across of what Brad talked to us about. You can see an example within the point. It would have just been preferable if I had the video footage without the music in it. So it is what it is, but that's the rundown. If you're in the West Tennessee, that general area, Brad does a great job. This is the second time that I've been to him for a lesson. The first time, though, with a tournament partner, I will have to say that was a better experience than just going as a group but without a tournament partner, is how I did the first time. So with the tournament partner, he lets you see how you're meshing together, what types of shots you each have, how each of you should be positioned, and all four of us were really happy with how the lesson went and the feedback and correction that Brad made for us. So anyways, I hope you enjoy it. So I'll put this video in front of all the teaching aspect video, and then I'll release a second video of just Jennifer, Brent, Cody, and myself trying to apply what we learned from Brad after the lesson was over with. Anyway, thanks for watching. In our lesson, this is the first instructional that we get. What you see here is Cody and I are unwinding the stack, and so it's successful. We didn't get beat from it, but Brad notices that there's an opportunity to be beat. And so basically, when you rewind it, and so there's a big opening after I do the return in this particular portion where Jennifer can hit that ball. She goes for a little too much and doesn't make it, but anyways, it can put me in a bind, or Cody. And so on into the video, Brad comes over and tells us he'd suggest that we change the way we stack to where we give hand signals and both of us are on the court. That way, if someone does get a deep return or a deep serve, we can call a stay or cancel the switch. We have more options and more court coverage this way. It takes a little getting used to, because Cody and I have never done that method before. And so here's an example of implementing that. So Jennifer's serving, and so normally I would have been standing off to the side, and Cody returns it to Brent here. And so I would have slid over here. Cody would have been running as he is right now. Um, but Brent wouldn't have hit this ball in that scenario. He would have tried to hit it over here where Cody wasn't. And so now Brent sees a line right here, and I just slide over and get the poach. So the other benefit in this stacking situation is when I'm transitioning over, I can kind of protect just watching what the opponents are doing. I can hold middle and be prepared to protect this line or middle. You can just kind of patrol the kitchen line and try to grab shots out of the air in a way that you couldn't do, because normally I would have been over here, Cody running over here, and it just there's just all kinds of opportunities for balls to be driven as Cody's moving. Or in that situation, if they see me already moving over here, then they could come down the line behind me, and I wouldn't have momentum taking me one way. It's easy to go behind you at that point. So here in this point, Brad talks to us about, if you will, poaching a drop. And so what he saw there is my mediocre drop in front of Jennifer. Oh, too far. So here's not the best drop, and Jennifer has no problem getting it. Um, but what Brad is wanting to do, and what he's explaining later on, right here, is he's telling Brent to come over and take that drop out of the air. Because as you can see, well, I went too far again. So you got all the time in the world right here to see my drop come in. And so Brad was just suggesting to Brent, or whoever the left side player is, Cody or Brent in this scenario, to come in and take that drop to keep either and send it back at me, or you got all kinds of options at that point if we look at it. So right here, so if Brent was in position, he could have rolled it over here. I mean, he's got all kinds of spots right here. So, and that's what Brad was suggesting after this point was over. Just to be looking for that opportunity to take that drop out of the air. Here in this point, Brad talks to us about the right person and paddle position and sliding. And so as you can see, Brent has enough time to do a lot of things with this dink from Cody. And as you can see, I'm sitting backhand when he hits it. But he goes down the line far enough. Well in, too. I let it go because I was thinking it'd be wide. But anyways, I'm sitting backhand. And I mean, it's an easy shot if I was ready forehand already. And And so that's what Brad comes over to say, is that if you're going to be a right side player, then you need to make a decision during the point if you're wanting to take more forehands or more backhands, and you have to slide accordingly. And so if we go back to where I let that ball go, see, in this position, Brad would have said that I'm almost baiting a forehand ball because my line is open, but since I'm doing it wrong, I'm sitting backhand and not able to, at that point, even have the forehand ready. Here's an example of patrolling your sliding, having your paddle ready, all of the above. So Cody drops it right in front of Brent. So if you'll notice, my paddle's neutral. So Brent can either go here, here, at my body. And so he chooses to go down line again. And I'm able to see it quick enough and get my paddle ready. And I just roll it. Here, Brad talks to Cody, or talks about crashing in general. And so we won that point back at this drop right here. Nope, not that one. So this reset of mine right here, Brent telegraphs his paddle right here. And so after this point's over, Brad talks to Cody about seeing that, and Cody comes in backhand right here. And then finishes it off with overhead. And so what Brad's saying is that Brent's telegraphing the paddle. Most likely that's going to end up being a roll to the middle. And so he's telling Cody, or the left side player, to come crash the middle ready forehand. So we'll get back to my reset. So right here, so what Brad is suggesting is that Cody would probably be a step or so to the left, sitting forehand, ready to take this ball, because he could easily roll this forehand. And he's doing a backhand poke for the most part right here, which works. But Brad saw an opportunity to do it better. Here at this point, Brad talks about the dinking locations between the two right side players. And so what he's telling Jennifer here is earlier in that point, she needed to get a dink to my left foot. So we'll start the point again. So here's her first dink / reset. And so she drops it to my right hand, forehand. And I think what Brad is talking about is this particular dink right here. She's at the kitchen at this point, and then gives me another forehand, or dink to my forehand, and then a missed ATP. And so what Brad's talking about is on this dink right here, instead of it dropping right here, Brad's saying that it needed to go
right here in front of this left foot of mine. That way I have to backhand the dink. In this point, Cody asks if he should have driven instead of dropped. And Brad's answer is to do more of a hybrid shot. It's got a little pace on it, but a lot of spin. And the point or the shot in question is right here. This one right here. So as you can see, Jennifer's at the net, Brent's in transition. And so Cody just drops it right in front of Brent's forehand, which Brent then attacks. I mean, it's lofty. And then it creates a put away eventually. And so what Brad told Cody was in this shot right here to do a more aggressive drive, so that way it's already tucking or dipping, and obviously it would have more pace on it. It would probably not give Brent that same opportunity again. Here in this point, Brad stops us afterwards to talk to Jen about when you start dinking to the left foot of your opponent, the right side opponent particularly, what you need to start doing after they adjust to that strategy player. So it's a dink to the left foot, Cody's there to get it, dink behind Cody, he's opened up the court again to my left foot, and then that third dink go back to the left foot, and sometimes you'll get a pop-up. Here in this point, Brad notices and corrects Cody and myself on how to position our paddles depending on where the ball's at. And he's talked about this one other time in the video, and I didn't show it yet. I felt like this was a better example. So I serve it. Cody drops it. And so, if you'll notice, as the ball was starting to become in front of me, I was kind of sitting backhand when I was going up to the kitchen. And honestly, I thought the ball was going to go wide, but it wasn't. But Brad comes out after the next point and says that in that scenario, I should have just been ready for the forehand there and just smacked it out of the air. Because it's an easy shot, even if it was going wide. Here's another situation where Cody and I have to decide who's taking what ball. And this was one of the real beneficial things of coming here to Brad with a tournament partner of yours. And he can watch, because these same rules probably wouldn't apply to every partnership, depending on what partner has what skills or what shots in their bag. Um, but in this scenario, we'd already been instructed on it twice, roughly. And so this happened. So Jennifer serves it. Cody, kind of a short return. Anyways, the ball ends up in front of me again. And so I am sitting a little backhand. But then very clearly ends up going to our middle, which would be Cody's forehand. And so I just let it go by so Cody can crush it. And then here in this little section, I just asked the question to Brad if that was Cody's shot or my shot. And he said yes, that would have been Cody's shot in that scenario. Here in this point, Brad talks to us about decision making in the transition zone. As you can see, Brent gets in a bind here with Cody's shot, and he kind of throws up a lob. So Brad says what he'd like to see there is just a reset into the kitchen. Here in this point, Brad talks about applying pressure to a good drop, or any shot for that matter, but it works really well with drops. So Brad serves it, Cody returns it, and Brent hits a really good drop shot. And as you can see, Brad realizes that pretty early into Brent's swing. So he's analyzing that ball in the air and realizes it's good, and he takes off towards the kitchen a little quicker to get ready, and he's watching Cody's paddle during that whole time as well, and see where Cody's about to hit it. And just looking at this, you can tell Cody's going to cross court it, and so he starts squeezing middle to try to poach that cross court out of the air, which it hits the net. Cody probably saw Brad rushing middle and then realized he had to hit a better shot than what he was going to, and then therefore hit it into the net. And that's what applying that pressure of just Brad's positioning can do. And so then Brad talks about it here later. And here's that point again in real time. So here comes the drop, and then Brad accelerates. Here in this point, Brad notices Brent backs off the kitchen line in the middle of this point and misses an opportunity to probably put the ball away earlier, or at least hit a more aggressive shot. And so we'll watch it again. So Cody serves it. Brent hits it. I try to make a pretty ambitious poach. Lose my footing. Cody drops it. Brad sends it back to Cody's backhand. And this is the spot that Brad's talking about with Brent. And so you see Brent takes the step off the kitchen from Cody's backhand. See, his feet aren't at the kitchen right now. And so if he hadn't backed off, he could have taken it out of the air there. So anyways, that's what Brad stops and talks about here in a second, is that if Brent was there and set at the kitchen, he would have been able to take that backhand of Cody's out of the air. Here in this point, Cody asks the question after the rally of what should he do different about the dinks that he did in that cross court. So we'll rewatch it. So Brad drops it in front of him, cross courts it, and then this dink right here, it just kind of sits up for Brad to do whatever. And they eventually win the point off of that attack. And so what Brad tells him is that it just needs to have more purpose to it, a little more pace, a little flatter, and that should make it lower to where he can't get it off the bounce like he just did. Here in this point, it gets into a dinking question again, or a dinking lesson. Pretty good point. With long ATP attempt. But Brad is discussing more about why the left side player should be taking the dinks that go to the left foot of the right side player and where you should put that ball. So for instance, Brad is saying that he should take the dink, number one, and then number two, he should put it over here to Cody's backhand. And so that means that the only angles of attack from that are up the line, which is Jennifer's forehand, or middle, which is Brad's forehand.